Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we have a pressing topic to discuss. Before we delve into the details, please remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest content. Now let's explore this critical issue together.
United States President Donald Trump's latest initiatives have excited everyone as a hope to end the war in Ukraine. To this end, Donald Trump had a sensational phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. After this call, Mr. Trump signaled that negotiations would start immediately. Ukraine and Europe were wondering how peace would be achieved in this process. For the peace negotiations, Donald Trump had completely pushed Europe aside. Europe was unhappy with these moves of Trump and Zelensky. Considering Europe's relations with Russia, Turkey was the first country that came to mind when it was mentioned about negotiations. Now, Zelensky is in Turkey. Of course, this is happening with the consent and approval of the United States. So what can Erdogan and Trump do for peace in Ukraine? Which agenda items will be on the table during Zelensky's talks in Ankara? And what role will Trump's "end the war now" rhetoric play in this picture? And what challenges will Erdogan's moves pose for Moscow? First of all, let's take a very short flashback to the events leading up to the start of the peace process. It was claimed that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had an important deal with Donald Trump if United States military aid continued. According to this agreement, Ukraine will give the United States its natural resources.
We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to.
In return, the United States would provide Ukraine with military aid. The question of what Russia would get was on the agenda. There was talk of the possibility that 4 regions of Ukraine and the Crimean Peninsula would be ceded to Russia on a peaceful basis. Russian sovereignty in the Black Sea was a major problem for the coastal European countries. North Atlantic Treaty Organization member Turkey, in particular, had skillfully used the Montreux Treaty to prevent Russian naval ships from passing through the Bosphorus and Dardanelles since the beginning of the war. With the prospect of Crimea being ceded to the Russians, Turkey stepped in again as peace talks between Kiev and Moscow were underway, a move that Vladimir Putin did not expect. It has emerged that Turkish leader Erdogan will begin talks with Volodymyr Zelensky, including on the latest developments in Ukraine and efforts to strengthen bilateral ties. Zelensky is reportedly currently in Turkey. It was announced that the talks between the two leaders will start on Tuesday, February 18th. It is estimated that the basis of the meeting will be issues such as reviewing the relations in all dimensions and discussing the steps that can be taken to further strengthen the cooperation between the two countries. Erdogan and Zelensky coming together, especially these days, was probably the last thing Putin would have wanted. But now the talks have started, and now we will discuss in detail what Turkey can do for Ukraine right now, how it can end this war. We will also explore how Turkish leader Erdogan can stop Russian President Vladimir Putin. Most importantly, we will also look at how Erdogan would strategize against Putin to help Ukraine retake Crimea.
Türkiye'nin ilk günden beri karşı çıktığı ve tanımadığı Kırım'ın ilhakı.
But first of all, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and give us a like so you can stay up to date with our content. All this is completely free of charge. Let's get started. Everyone knows that Erdogan has been against the war between Ukraine and Russia from the beginning. If you remember, Turkey also played the role of a mediator. These efforts proved fruitless, and the war continued. But the Ankara government is now in contact with Kiev in order to end the war. The focus has now shifted to the talks between Erdogan and Zelensky. If something significant and effective comes out of these talks, Russia is likely to move closer to peace negotiations. But what can Turkey do if Putin continues to do his own thing after the talks? Erdogan's first move would probably be to oppose the cession of Crimea to the Russians. The Turkish leader recently conveyed to Putin that Crimea should be returned to its rightful owners.
Kırım'ın Ukrayna'ya iadesi uluslararası hukukun bir gereğidir.
Erdogan also demanded an immediate halt to the annexation of the 4 Ukrainian regions of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. Given Erdogan's statements, it is clear that Turkey has always been a strong ally of Ukraine. In fact, Turkey's naval support to Ukraine in the Black Sea comes as no surprise. Simply put, Ankara will not allow Kiev to fall under Moscow's control. To this end, Turkey is militarily supporting Ukraine and will continue to do so as long as the war continues. This is rooted in the fact that Turkey sees Ukraine as an important ally in the balance of power around the Black Sea. The only access to the Black Sea by sea is through the Turkish Straits, namely the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles. The Montreux Convention of 1936, which regulates access to the Black Sea by sea, has made Turkey a sort of Black Sea gatekeeper. The convention allows only the littoral states of Bulgaria, Georgia, Romania, Russia, Ukraine, and Turkey to have large and permanent navies in the Black Sea. Of these states, only Russia and Turkey have large navies. Given that Russia is Turkey's historic rival and a militarily larger power than Turkey, Ankara is developing good relations with the other 4 Black Sea countries in order to create a balancing bloc around the Black Sea against Moscow. To this end, Turkey is providing Kiev with naval support to make Ukraine more resilient, at least in terms of its navy, in its war against Russia. Turkey's latest contribution to the Ukrainian Navy in this regard was the first corvette Hetman Ivan Mazepa within the scope of the Island Project for the Turkish Navy. It has been years since this ship was launched in October 2022. We can say that this is an important step towards strengthening the Ukrainian defense forces going forward. The shared data allows us to estimate that the Hetman Ivan Mazepa corvette is already equipped with at least artillery weapons, namely the Leonardo Superfast 76mm bowgun mount and the Aselsan Gökdeniz 35mm anti-aircraft gun mount. Among the weapons suitable for this ship are about 2 times 4 launchers for Harpoon or Neptune anti-ship missiles, 21 vertical anti-aircraft guns for RIM 116 anti-aircraft missiles, 76mm and 35mm cannons. There is also the possible use of remote-controlled combat modules, Aselsan Stamp, and light torpedoes Mu-90. Hetman Ivan Mazepa will therefore give Ukraine a very important advantage in the Black Sea, even after its war with Russia. By providing this advantage to Ukraine, Turkey will be able to minimize Russian threats in the Black Sea. However, according to war analysts and military experts, Turkish leader Erdogan's steps to ensure security in the Black Sea are not limited to naval support for Ukraine. Turkey also wants to expand its own naval power to prevent Russia from becoming the dominant power in the Black Sea. In the first week of 2025, the Turkish Defense Ministry announced the construction of 31 new warships to support the country's naval power projection. The projects include an aircraft carrier, an air defense destroyer, and a new class of submarines, all of which will be new additions to the Turkish Navy. While media attention on Turkey's defense industry has focused on unmanned aerial combat vehicles and the indigenous production of fighter jets, the Hürjet and Khan, there have also been notable developments in the naval sector. Turkey's effort to modernize its navy and increase its naval power projection capabilities is part of the country's activist foreign policy and commitment to implement an advanced defense strategy based on domestically produced weapons. Some reports indicate that Turkey has invested over $8 billion United States dollars to build new warships, setting a record in its naval construction program. The scale of these investments highlights an extremely new direction for the Turkish Navy. At the center is the Mugem project, Turkey's ambitious plan to develop a national aircraft carrier with a displacement of 60,000 tons, almost 3 times the size of its first LHD drone carrier, the TCG Anadolu. Aircraft carriers are often equated with great power status in the international system, and major naval powers such as the United States and China have several such units. They serve as symbolic symbols of naval diplomacy, serving political objectives, and are often deployed in remote theaters for deterrence and coercion in crises. The possible deployment of MUGEM would make Turkey one of the few countries in the world to operate a vessel of this size and power projection capability. In terms of development, a MUGEM builds on the early success of Turkey's indigenously built amphibious assault ship TCG Anadolu, which is planned to host Turkish UCAVs such as Baykar TB3, Kızılelma, and the naval variant of the Hürjet. MUGEM is also expected to house advanced units of homegrown armed UAVs, including elite models being developed by Baykar Industries. Turkey's capabilities in five-country first-generation warfare and a high level of interconnectedness between indigenous defense products remain key features of its advanced defense doctrine, and MUGEM is likely to showcase this expertise. This naval element is one of the main forces capable of intimidating Russia in the Black Sea. On the other hand, the TF-2000 anti-aircraft destroyer is also worth a look. The TF-2000 guided missile destroyer is a project that has been under consideration since the early 2000s, and the project has regained momentum with Turkey's latest naval move. The Navy's air defense umbrella consists mainly of 40-kilometer range SM-1 missiles mounted on 1,980 Era G-class frigates. To provide long-range coverage against modern airborne threats, Turkey needs a purpose-built platform to house advanced sensors and surface-to-air missiles like the Cyper. The model is key to Turkey's advanced defense doctrine and broader defense network under the Steel Dome AI-powered layered air defense system. It will host a range of anti-aircraft measures as well as a 96-cell indigenous vertical launch system capable of launching a variety of advanced munitions. Given Turkey's realization of the inability of a large part of its naval fleet to engage advanced aircraft at great distances, the TF-2000 remains an integral part of modernizing the Navy and providing coverage to the carrier strike group to be led by MUGEM. Should Russia oppose peace and the talks between Erdogan and Zelensky, Turkey will have a very powerful missile destroyer to confront Putin in the Black Sea. There is also the Milden submarine. Submarines probably have the greatest potential to change the balance of naval power in the region. Turkey has developed an impressive suite of signals intelligence and electronic intelligence sensors that allow for advanced situational awareness and covert operations. Armed with indigenous weapons that provide formidable strike capabilities, such as the Akya heavy torpedo, Admaka anti-ship missile, and soon the Gezgin cruise missile. These weapons will enhance Turkey's anti-access area denial strategy and create a strong deterrent in the Eastern Mediterranean. In this context, Milden represents another milestone in Turkey's naval power projection, responding to the urgency to increase security reach beyond coastal waters and modernize the existing submarine inventory. Turkey's submarine arsenal is largely based on German-designed models, albeit with some degree of local input. Turkey is seeking to localize domestic production and know-how in this area as part of its ongoing efforts to bring the remaining critical components of its weapons industry ashore. The project is expected to deliver the first units in 2030. Turkey's extensive investments in its maritime arm are likely to dominate the country's strategic thinking for the next decade, given the huge cost and labor spent on these projects. These investments are taking place at a time when Turkey is experiencing economic woes, and the government is essentially advancing austerity measures to curb inflation. The Turkish defense industry currently appears to be insulated from such measures, with the latest central budget allocating over 45 billion United States dollars to defense for 2025. A significant portion of these funds belong to the construction of MUGEM TF-2000 and Milden, all of which started operations simultaneously with steel cutting ceremonies at the beginning of the year. Turkey's naval investments are not aimed at at creating tensions or militarizing conflicts, but at a joint effort to build the next phase of local capabilities for defense. This can be perceived as a very special message to Russian President Vladimir Putin. If Putin brings the Russian Navy across the Black Sea to confront Ukraine, Turkey may take bolder steps, especially if this happens after the meeting between Erdogan and Zelensky. In such a scenario, we could witness an increased presence of the Turkish Navy in the Black Sea. Analysts argue that Russia's war with Ukraine has allowed Turkey to become the dominant power in the Black Sea. This is a critical component of Turkey's naval power projection in the Black Sea, which not only addresses its objectives in the Eastern Mediterranean, but also takes into account a holistic approach to the problem of security maximization and power projection. It is inevitable that new naval units will be effective in these theaters of operations and strengthen Turkey's overall capabilities. This has implications for the broader power dynamic and NATO's own power projection objectives against Russian interests in the region. While there is room for conflict in the maritime domain, Turkey's naval strategy still seems largely aligned with NATO interests and American foreign policy priorities. In August 2024, Turkish and United States amphibious assault ships conducted a joint naval exercise in the Eastern Mediterranean. This exercise was seen as an indication that Turkey was seeking to align its maritime strategy with its key North Atlantic Treaty Organization ally and limit potential fallout from perceptions of Turkey's growing naval arsenal. Moreover, Turkey's naval expansion is welcome news for the transatlantic alliance. The alliance has relied heavily on United States naval deterrence to ensure its presence in the Mediterranean. With Turkey now emerging as a major player, NATO can leverage this position. Turkey's naval superiority could be key to the alliance's overall deterrence strategy against both Russia and the various non-state armed groups that put global trade at risk in the Mediterranean, Horn of Africa, Red Sea, and Black Sea. Turkey is already making valuable contributions on these fronts and is poised to do so even more through maritime sector developments. Turkey's challenge in this regard, no matter how difficult, is likely to be to continue to align its strategies with the United States to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. This is evidenced by Erdogan's recent messages on how to end the war, which are already predicted to be in line with the Trump regime. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan stated that the Russia-Ukraine war could easily end if the United States administration, led by Donald Trump, adopts a problem-solving approach. Erdogan also stated that the efforts of Western countries, especially the United States, to end the war in Ukraine would accelerate the resolution of the conflict. He added that Turkey will continue to focus on the search for a solution. These messages showed that the Turkish leader trusted United States President Donald Trump. Erdogan's assurance that Trump can end this war certainly strengthens relations between the United States and Turkey. Both Turkey and the United States are likely to pursue the same policy on military aid to Ukraine until peace is restored. There are currently rumors that Turkey will take important steps in terms of military aid to Ukraine. So far, the Ankara government has already provided very significant military aid to Kiev. The TB2s have become intrinsically linked to the public perception of Ukraine's underdog struggle against Moscow. Just a few weeks before Russian President Vladimir Putin launched the war, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, during his visit to Kiev, concluded an agreement with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to allow Ukrainian factories to produce Turkish drones. Under this agreement, the Ukrainians were expected to produce Turkish UAVs, giving them a significant advantage in the war. The TB3 could also join this production. If the TB3 is also produced in a factory in Kiev, Ukraine will gain an incredible deterrent against Russia by owning these drones. In addition to drones, the Ukrainian armed forces have taken delivery of Cobra, two tactical vehicles developed by the Turkish company Otokar, which have achieved significant success against Russian forces on the battlefield. The delivery of Kirpi armored vehicles from Turkey to Ukraine was another proof of the cooperation between Kiev and Ankara. In short, Turkey both provides military support to the Ukrainian army and maintains important diplomatic relations with the Kiev regime. This situation will become much clearer after the latest meeting between Erdogan and Zelensky. It remains to be seen how Russian President Vladimir Putin will react to the summit between Erdogan and Zelensky. Thank you for watching.